Hello, and welcome to Chucked and Blessed, where the weird gets wonderful and the woo-woo gets real. I'm your host, Charles Crooks, psychic, teacher, and guide on this deep dive into grounded spirituality. Let's keep it honest, curious, and connected. Here we go. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Chucked and Blessed. And for today's episode, we are going to talk about ghosts and that kind of paranormal world. So if you've listened to earlier episodes, or if you listen to my podcast, Hey Ghost Hey, then you very much already know that I run Bellingham Ghost Tours here in beautiful Bellingham, Washington. And I started that about 3 years ago, or 2.5 years, I should say now. And it was really a good chance for me to combine all of my past ghost hunting experience that I did as a hobby, but also combine it with everything that I now do spiritually as well. And so I think one of the very first things that I kind of thought about as I went into planning and creating the tours is really, how do I blend both of these worlds? Because I feel like they were really kind of separate from each other, even though still, of course, all the same concepts. But I feel like, at least with spirituality, kind of psychic side, you would see things that were more of, I don't know, I guess kind of more of a lovey-dovey kind of approach, where spirit usually seems fine and that everything is usually good after they pass away. Whereas in the ghost world of things, there's definitely very much a kind of Hollywood feel of fear and perpetuating that fear, and that everything is a lot darker. So as I kind of went into the tours, I really said, all right, what does make sense for me? How do I blend all of this together? And how do I kind of make peace with it in my own kind of understanding of what is happening? So for this episode, we're going to focus a little bit more on the psychic side of things instead of the ghost hunting side of things. So let's just jump right in. So let's start first with just a very, very, very brief history overview of ghosts and kind of the current state of things that we are in. So here we go. So ghost stories themselves can be really traced back as far as ancient Greece and to ancient times. And when we look at early ghost stories, there was always kind of a purpose to the ghost coming back, which I think very much makes sense if you're trying to make sense of any of this. And the ghosts that would come would usually be searching for something or had a final message to deliver about their life or what happened to them, or even like a hidden object or something like that that they had to share. So the unfinished business storyline surrounding ghosts is still something that we very much see today. So that really hasn't changed since ancient times, and as far as where ghost stories come from. But I would say, as far as modern day ghosts go, we really attribute that to the rise of spirituality in the 1800s throughout Western Europe and the United States. So in this Victorian period, ghosts themselves really kind of became a giant fad for the times, as a lot of people were into them, into trying to communicate with them. I think this is also when we saw a very large rise of psychics that we kind of see in modern day times as well. As we saw things like the rise of the gallery style reading with the Fox sisters, where you could have your psychics up on stage and then read an entire crowd. So you would experience a lot of people in a very short amount of time. But of course, also mentioning the Fox sisters, we had a lot of things that were very disingenuine for the time, and a lot of people would scam others, and a lot of the seances were not that genuine, unfortunately. The practice of ectoplasm, where people would say that they produce this substance from communicating with the other side, was nothing more than cheesecloth that was stuffed with cotton that they would hide in their body during the seance and then pull out of their body to be like, look, this is what I did. I produce ectoplasm. And then when the lights would come on at the end of the seance, everyone would see this and be like, oh my God, this is proof that they communicated with the other side. So Thankfully, we don't have people doing that today, but we still have a lot of people going to great lengths to fake ghost stuff. That is nothing new. Still exists today, even with the rise that we have of Hollywood and all those ghost shows. But I think it's totally natural that we still have interest in these things because there's so much unknown about what does happen to us when we die or where we go. So I think that the topic of ghosts is always going to fascinate people and is always going to have staying power, even though we're going to see different fads within that world come and go. And so, for my personal history when it comes to ghosts, like, of course, growing up, I watched any of the ghost shows that I could find on TV, loved to check out books from the library about ghost stories and all that kind of stuff. But it was really, I would say, growing up in my teenage years where I really had my first experience with a ghost, or at least seemed consistent enough with a ghost in our home in the Cleveland suburbs, and that was with a ghost cat that we had. And so now I really had no context other than what I had seen on the shows. So it was kind of like a slow burn with the experience of this cat that I really didn't have anything major happen until after a while of experiencing it and seeing it kind of out of the corner of my eye. And so I would just be home, and we had never owned a cat, and the home that we moved into once we moved to the Cleveland area was built brand new, so there was no rhyme or reason for any cat spirit to be there. And it was kind of perplexing to me because I always kind of wondered, am I really experiencing this? It doesn't really seem to happen in all the crazy overt ways that I was seeing on TV, but I just kind of ran with it. So it would usually be just this really quick black shadow that I would see dart from room to room out of the corner of my eye, and sometimes you could kind of make out the image of what looked like a cat scurrying across from one end of the room to the other. So I would often tell my family about it, joke about it. No one really believed me. I was the only one that really seemed to experience it. But then one day I was home alone, just looking in front of this mirror on this big dresser that I had, and I felt something rub up against the bottom of my legs. And when I looked down for a split second, there was an image of a black cat kind of weaving through my legs, or like they do when they come up to, I guess, I don't know, rub on you. And it disappeared as quickly as I saw it, but I know what I felt and I know what I saw in that moment. And that was the only time that I ever physically experience anything related to that. But it really just kind of helped solidify that experience within myself, which I was very grateful for, even though it was startling at the time, because it definitely caught me by surprise, caught me off guard. When I was after when I was a freshman in college, my family ended up moving from the Cleveland area to the suburbs of Chicago, and that was the last that I ever experienced the ghost cat. It seemed that whatever that energy was, it did stay with that house in Cleveland and did not come with us. So was it attached to the land? Was it attached to the house? Was there something more to it being in the land itself? I don't know, but it definitely seems so that it was more so connected to that than it was to me or my family. After being in the Chicago area for a few years, and I think when I was there, that's when Ghost Hunters really started to get its rise, so I was very much enthralled with this world and wanted to be a part of it. So then moved from Chicago to Bellingham, and one of the very first things that I did was I tried to see if there were any ghost hunting groups in the area, and I did find one. And their name was BOO, B-O-O-O, which stood for Bellingham Observers of the Odd and Obscure, and they were just a little local ghost hunting group that was run by Sherry Mulholland. I really had no idea what I was doing at the time. I was just really excited to be doing it. And as I would go on more and more investigations, I realized that there were things that I was able to pick up on a little bit more than usual, whether that was like either someone expressing a thought. I would think about maybe what they were going to say right before they said it, or I would pick up on maybe a detail of the space that we were in, and after I would pick up on it, someone would give validation about the thought that I just had. And so it really seemed like there were all these little coincidences that were just kind of stacking up a little bit more than often, I should say. And it really kind of made me think that maybe there was something to me being psychic. Even when I was a newer member of Boo, our leader, Sherry, she would always call me one of the psychics of the group. And at first that felt really cool, but at the same time also really scary because one, I had no idea what I was doing or picking up on, or even how to really kind of control or tap into it. But also, two, because I was so afraid to call myself a psychic that I think it kind of stopped me and stopped my own progress in a lot of ways because I had a lot of fear of calling myself that just because of all the negative connotations that would come with it. And so I think for a long time I ended up just calling myself an intuitive because I was so afraid of the word psychic and all that came with. But again, it was still really Sherry that kept urging me to pursue this and get into a little bit more. And so it was myself and her and two others. And we tried to do kind of just like these little psychic practice workshops. And I will never forget the first one that we did. Again, no idea what I was doing. I just kind of threw myself into it and said, all right, let's try this. But I think it was we did an exercise to either connect to spirit or maybe even connect to our spirit guides. And I just had this really, really strong visual kind of experience in my own mind's eye about this woman that I saw walk up to me, hold my hand, and she just had a very comfortable presence to her, a very calming presence to her. And I think that was one of the very first times that I encountered a spirit guide, or at least something that felt like a spirit guide to me. And so, of course, not just that exercise, but other ones that we did, it really, really made me think, I do have something to this and I can participate in this. And it really just kind of opened up the door for me to pursue it even more, or even just kind of give me that permission to pursue it for myself. And so after a few times we did those together, I really then pursued everything at Simply Spirit, which I've talked about many times in past episodes. That really kind of put me on the training then of how to tap into my clairvoyance, how to tap into my psychicness, and really just start working with it on a deeper level. All right, before I get into how I experience ghosts, I want to talk a little bit just about what is a ghost, how do they happen, and how can we experience them. So I very much believe, and I even said it last episode in the past lives, that I think when we die, our purpose is to kind of learn about this life and then reincarnate into another life. But I do think that even on a spiritual level, even as we experience all these different lives, we still kind of maintain a sense of who we are as a soul and who we are as a spirit, and kind of evolve from there. So I do think that it is possible that when you pass away, you can either A, move on, you can B, choose to stay behind, because I think even as a soul you have free will still. And 3, you can accidentally kind of get stuck behind as well. Now, as far as the stuck ones go, I don't necessarily see that as exactly like Hollywood portrays it, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I feel like those are the main classifications of kind of what a soul is and its different levels of existence. So usually if we are looking for ghosts, there's 2 ways that we try to figure out how they interact with us. So one is that, are they intelligent? And I very much believe that souls that pass on do have intelligence, especially our deceased loved ones that love to come back and visit us. And so I think that's a very much intelligent interaction. Whereas, on the other hand, we have also residual interactions. Now, I also think that as energetic beings that are living, we can leave behind energy echoes throughout our life. It's not just when we die, but I think that we leave kind of these moments of ourselves energetically throughout time, throughout space, and those get left behind as echoes that can still be experienced. So pretty much we either have the ghosts that you can interact with that have intelligence, that seem to have consciousness, or we mostly have an energy echo that got left behind. Now, I even think that there's such a wide scope of energy echoes that can be left behind, and that you might even have full conversations that seem like they have intelligence, but it's really just kind of like a movie that gets stuck in time and left behind. So even though it might seem like it has intelligence, doesn't necessarily mean that it does. So if I go into a space looking for ghosts or try to find what is going on, I start with, what is the entity that one we think is even here? Is it intelligent? Is it residual? And then I go from there. So if it is intelligent, then I want to try to figure out what is that state of being? Are they just here to visit us? Are they actually stuck? Or are they choosing to be here and choosing to stay here? So from there, I really try to get a sense. Well, again, it kind of goes two paths. I will try to get a sense of, if I'm looking for spirits in a space, I will do kind of like an energetic scan of the space to just see if I feel anything. Whereas if I am trying to connect with a certain individual, that process is a little bit different in how I allow that to come in. If I'm looking for energies or looking for spirits in a space, I almost kind of send out, like, I don't know, what I call an energetic grid into the area around me, and I feel that grid and I can feel the space. And usually if I feel a spirit within that space, it feels like that grid comes up against like a pressure or some kind of resistance that I feel energetically. And from there, once I feel an energy in a space, I can usually tune in to an emotion and start to get more information on what that energy might be feeling, or who they might be, or anything about them, or why they're kind of there. Whereas if I'm connecting to a specific individual with intention, I kind of give them the space to come in and allow them to just kind of start speaking to me, versus kind of poking the energy in the area around me to see who is there. So really, if I am trying to connect on a psychic level, those are kind of the two ways that I go about things. One, trying to figure out, okay, if I am going to reach out to something in the space or try to see what's here, I have a way of doing that. And then if I am going to reach out to someone specific, I have a way of doing that. But then, of course, also trying to figure out, are the energies I am talking to, are they conscious, or are they kind of these echoes that are stuck in time? So let's talk a little bit about the spirits that I feel that get stuck behind, that are not intentionally choosing to stay behind. Now, I feel like this is a very big topic within our Hollywood ghost everything, and that often when you have something that stays behind or gets stuck behind, that you'll see them kind of divulge into delirium, into craziness, or they might start to lose their sense of humanity. And I think this is where Hollywood and real life greatly differ from each other. It is my experience that when I have felt spirits that feel stuck, to me, it feels like they're almost kind of stuck inside a fever dream or a stress dream. I don't know if you ever had where you wake up in the middle of the night, you might have had a dream that feels kind of frustrating, but it feels very, very hard, even though you're awake, to mentally shake that whole dream, to kind of shake that feeling, to shake that awareness that you had while you're in it. To me, that's the exact same feeling that I get with spirits that are stuck. And so I think that sometimes if you do encounter that they really just need a helping hand to kind of be like, no, look, there is this perspective outside of you that you are able to experience. And usually once they kind of have that little shakeup, then they're able to get out of that. If they want to move on, then they have that complete potential to do so. But I don't think it's like Hollywood makes it out to be, how you have to force spirits along or that you have to move them to the light. I think we can very much work hand in hand with these energies. And a lot of the times the ones that are stuck just necessarily don't really know it. And so I think giving them that help is really the direction that they need more than anything else. Another way that I think that is powerful to experience ghost or spirit energy on a psychic level is through collective or group activity. And so this is why I think seances are so popular, and also because they can produce results. Now, the times that I have tried to lead such, I will say that I have not had anything really remarkable or crazy happen. There's always kind of been little things that'll make you go, was that because of the seance, or was that because of what we did? But I've never, at least yet, not had any sort of crazy experiences, or like have any sort of apparitions come into the middle of the table that we're sitting around or anything like that. But I do think that there is something very powerful to collective energy and the energy that people bring together as a group. And I do think that that can make spirit communication a lot easier. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen, but having that potential and all those different energies, I think, can make the potential for things to happen a little bit easier. I do think, though, that if you are going to do collective work like that, doesn't necessarily have to be a seance. Even a group ghost hunt can still be a collective activity that is very seance-like. I do think that you need to have very, very strong boundaries for opening and closing those sessions. I very much find that when it comes to any sort of energy or spirit, that you still want to have that respect, and you want to have those boundaries and really set your parameters before you go into even trying to communicate with something. Because even if you don't intentionally mean to attract something, doesn't mean that it can't happen. And so I always try to go, if I am going into anything intentional like that, I say, here's what I allow. I say, here's what I'm not comfortable with. And I really kind of just set that out into the universe before I even begin. And even if you are doing things as a group, I think is very beneficial to even kind of come up with some group community rules as you do this stuff, just because everyone is going to come from a different point of understanding and experience. So I find that it's really good to have everyone at least on the very same page and have a group collective intention and know what that looks like for everyone. And while we are on the topic of opening up those doors to other realms, I also really want to just touch on the subject of possession, because again, I feel like this is something our media has exploded and blown out of proportion compared to what real life actually looks like. So I think, number one, it's important to understand that as energetic beings, I feel like we have a say in what we get to experience. And so I think if you are going to be possessed, you have to willingly give up that part of yourself and let something in. And I don't think that something can just take you over or be a stronger will per se and just kind of take over your own will. I don't see that happening. And I think even on an energetic level, it makes sense to me that we still get a say in that. Can I think possession, or do I think possession can happen? Yes, absolutely. But I don't think it happens as much as we see. And there's also an interesting cultural aspect to that too, where we'll see possession kind of look all different in different types of cultures around the world as well. And so I think when it comes to that you have to factor in religion and culture into what that looks like or what possession looks like. But I still think no matter where you're coming from, that you have a say in the autonomy of your own body on an energetic level. I don't think anything can just come in, take you over, even if you, let's say, do a seance and have very poor boundaries. You might attract stuff into your life and you might attract stuff into your home or the space that you live in. But I don't think that they can just take you over without you giving up that space to begin with. So just keep that in mind. I'm not trying to scare anyone, of course, when it comes to possession, but I just want you to realize that you are an energetic being and you very much do have a say in what you get to experience. And just one last thing that comes to possession that I want to touch on, and we have to really question, is it mental illness or is it possession? I really think that a lot of the possession cases that we have existing in the world are probably more mental illness than they really are related to a supernatural or paranormal component. So just please keep that in mind, that I think that there's a lot of regular things that deal with people and that people go through and that people have to handle on their own that don't necessarily need a supernatural explanation to attribute to what's going on. All right, so enough on that, but now I would like to focus on some ways in which being psychic and reaching out to spirit or spirit of those have passed have been beneficial for me. I'll never forget the first time that I intentionally tried to reach out to my deceased grandparents to try to get some understanding surrounding a family issue that was going on. And so it was related to my grandparents that were here in Bellingham. My grandpa had already passed away, but my grandma was still living at the time. And so I think I was in a workshop related to death and to kind of looking at death through different psychic means and such, and how we process and how we go through with that. And so the teacher had us reach out to someone that we knew that had already passed away and just kind of see what that experience was like. And I'll never forget the image that I saw with my grandfather and reaching out to him. He was an avid outdoorsman, loved fishing, hunting, all that stuff. And the sense that I got for him right away was that I saw him sitting in a boat, just having a good time fishing away. And it just felt so peaceful. So immediately that was kind of the first indication that I was maybe really tapping into to his essence or to him, to communicate with him. And so I let it all play out. And I'm not going to give the specifics as it relates to family stuff, but it really helped me find understanding and sympathy and awareness in a time where I was really challenged to find those emotions for others. And just by having that one little interaction with him, I don't know if it was the words themselves or if it was more of like the feeling of energy that came along with the words. But it just gave me such an understanding that I was able to hold on to in a way that meant a lot to me and had a lot of power to me. And that was really the first kind of instance where I was like, wow, there really is something to this. I can really connect into them. And even if I am making all of this up, there's still benefit to it towards my growth. So that was really the kind of the first time that I got to experience reaching out, and I felt like I had a really successful time in trying to communicate with those that are beyond us, or at least someone that I knew that had passed away, and trying to communicate with them. There was one other instance that I want to share with you, and again, I'm going to keep the details vague on this. But a family friend had passed away, and I had never really known her before, had just heard about her through others, and I decided to, I think this was during my clairvoyance training, so I decided to just kind of reach out to her and see if she was okay and see how things were going for her. And this is one of the very first times that I kind of felt that stuck energy of spirit, or kind of like that fever dream of kind of being stuck inside oneself, inside one's energy, unable to move on. And initially, when I felt this person's energy, I think it just felt not only like sadness, but disappointment in self, and all sorts of kind of those, I would say, more negative emotions that kind of went along with it. And so immediately that was the sense that I got when I felt this person's energy. But I still felt like, even though I kind of entered that space with them, that they were able to acknowledge me and understand that I was in there. And keep in mind, I had not done this before. I had no idea what I was doing. It was more of just a let's see what happens kind of experiment. And so I felt like I connected with her and felt the energy that she was in, and we talked for a little bit. And all I really remember is that we started to walk together. We really kind of had no purpose. I wasn't trying to help her cross over, but we just kind of walked along together, and I just had this feeling that we were holding hands and that we were going somewhere, but I didn't really know where we were going. And then we eventually just reached this door, and it felt like it was the door to cross over to the next step, or cross over to whatever that next place is. And we just kind of talked about that, and I was honest and said I had no idea what that was going to look like for her, but we parted ways. She went through, and that was that. So I kind of thought, okay, well, that was an interesting experience. Maybe there was something to it, but maybe not. And even if not, then I'm just going to move on and continue on with my day. So I think it was about a week or so later, I again was in the clairvoyant program, and we got readings once a month from our teacher, Jill. And I decided to ask her if she could just check in with this person on a spiritual level and just see if they're okay. I didn't give any details of what I experienced with this person, or what my kind of little walkthrough with them was like. But one of the very first things that Jill said after she connected in was, she kind of paused and she said, "Did you help this person because they're saying thank you to you?" And it really took me aback, because, again, I had not given Jill any details surrounding this, or surrounding this person or their passing, but she picked up on exactly what we had kind of gone through in that little tandem experience together. And so that really made me think that there was something to what I was feeling, what I was experiencing, and it was enough validation to really just kind of help me understand that there was something to what I was picking up on, and that it could really be genuine. So for me, it was kind of like a paramount moment to really just solidify that I did connect in something bigger than myself, or outside of myself, or however you want to describe it. But it just felt like a real meaningful and powerful connection. Now, I will say that I think in trying to move spirits on intentionally, I've always kind of been hesitant to do so, because one, I think they should get a say in if they want to move on or not. And we should not be able to force that. I think there's a lot of ethics around the question of, should we force spirits, or should we force them to move on? Because again, if they still have their own kind of autonomy and free will, well then, is that really our call to make? So more than anything, I hope it just maybe gives you a different perspective to think about when it comes time to moving spirits on, or getting them to cross over. I think that should be more of a partnership where we can go hand in hand with each other, instead of trying to force anyone or anything outside of our space. Now, I think that's different than setting boundaries and setting rules for yourself in your own energetic living areas, or wherever it is that you may be. But I really do, again, think that there are levels of nuance that we have to give to these situations, and not just be like, well, I'm the right one because I'm the living one. And I think there's so much more to be experienced, and to even be learned from everything and everyone on the other side. So again, let's keep it nice. Let's keep it more of a partnership than I'm going to force you into this space or another. And so as we wrap up, I think the greatest benefit to being able to do any of this is that it lets us know that we have connection beyond our physical and even beyond our deaths. I find some of the most believable ghost stories to be those of our loved ones coming back to visit us and checking in on us. One thing I know for sure is that spirit is around us all the time. Now, I don't think that our dead loved ones are spying on us all the time. I do think that they do have respect for our more private moments. But it just means that we have the potential for that connection all the time. So if you want to have experiences, especially with those that you know have passed, ask them to be around, ask them for a sign, ask them to be in your space again. And you can always ask them too, if you feel nervous about it, to do it in a way that is not scary at all. Keep in mind that they do love you still from that other side. So it's not like they're going to just kind of throw everything away and come at you with everything they got. I find that it may come in surprising ways, but it always still feels good. And it never really makes me feel bad or even makes me question if my spiritual safety is at risk. So ask for it. And again, just remember, keep those boundaries if you do invite things in, and to set those parameters. But I think it's a very, very cool thing to experience, and even a very fun thing to play around with. So try it out yourself and see what happens. All right, very last thing I've got for you guys before I wrap up is I want to share with you some actual ghost voices, well, at least as far as I know, they're ghost voices, from a previous investigation on one of my many times out. So I know I said I'd focus more on the psychic side of things, but I still think it's very cool to experience the more tangible ways of knowing that these things are around us and knowing that they are real on some level. So the idea is that when I go out to investigate, I take a little digital voice recorder with me. There's nothing special about it. And if I'm out for 4 hours, then I have 4 hours of audio to go back through and try to find stuff that wasn't there. And so when we do find something, it's not something that we heard with our ears at the time. It's usually only on the recorder. And that's the case of what I'm going to play for you. And what's unique about this one, I actually play these on the Fairhaven tour. So if you've been on that, you might have already experienced these. But I like these because they're very clear. They're very easy to understand. I feel like a lot of times on the Go shows, you'll get stuff that comes through that's very garbled, and you really have to strain to try to make sense of it. But not with these. As I said, they're very clear. Usually people can pick them out right away. So I'm just going to go ahead and play that very first clip for you. And this is coming from Sycamore Square inside Fairhaven.
Thanks, guys. Just like you didn't get your...
So it's just that quiet whisper that comes in and says, "Thanks, guys." That was no one in our group at the time. So here that is 2 more times. So after we captured that, of course, since we didn't hear it with our ears, we weren't aware that we got it at the time. But then we had I kind of felt like it was that same voice. Some people hear that they hear 2 different voices between these 2 clips. But we got it where that phrase comes back again, and there's even different inflection and intonation within this second clip. So here it is. I'm just going to play it twice right from the get-go.
Thanks, guys.
Shot the sheriff?
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Shot the sheriff?
Yeah.
Hopefully that doesn't creep you out too much, but you never know. I think it's pretty cool, honestly. And especially, like I said, compared to a lot of the ghost shows, it's really rare to get stuff that clear to come through. So if you want to go check out a haunted area in Bellingham, go to Sycamore Square in Fairhaven. The building is open to the public. You can walk around in it, check out all the different various shops and businesses in there. But I highly recommend checking it out if you are in town. And that is officially all I have for you today. I cannot thank you enough for being here and being open. You can visit charlescrooks.com or email me directly at info@charlescrooks.com if you would like to book a reading or even just talk about anything in this episode or anything else. May you forever be chucked and blessed and always go into this world with clear eyes and an open butt. Until next time, stay curious, my friends.